Ever feel like you're just not the creative type? Like those sparks of inspiration are more like distant memories.
Yeah, you're not alone there.
Right. Well, today we're diving deep into creative energy and how to unlock it even if you think you don't have any.
Right, and we've got some great insights to help us with that.
We're tapping into the work of Bradley Charbonneau. It's Charbonneau, emphasis on that first syllable.
Oh, his stuff is fascinating. He kind of flips the whole waiting for inspiration thing on his head.
Oh, so no more hoping for that magical muse to strike.
Not exactly. He's saying it's more about understanding, like, your own energy rhythms, you know?
Okay, so we ditch the muse and get a schedule instead.
Well, it's not quite that simple, but he's saying we all have these natural ups and downs in our energy and our confidence. Happens throughout the day, the week, even the whole year.
So if we're struggling to, feel creative, maybe it's because we're trying to force it at the wrong time.
Exactly. Instead of beating ourselves up for not being creative enough, we should be looking at when we actually tend to feel most creative.
I like where this is going. So how do we actually figure that out?
Well, Charbonneau's big question is, when does your creativity ignite?
But what about those people who swear they're never creative? Is he saying they're just not paying attention?
He wouldn't say they're wrong, but he'd definitely encourage a different way of looking at it.
Okay, so instead of saying, I'm not creative, we should be asking.
Maybe something like, when do I feel the most energized, most focused? When do ideas come easily?
Interesting. Because those moments, even if they don't scream creative, they might be the seeds of creativity, right?
Right. They might not look like what we think of as creative, but they're there.
Okay, so let's say someone wants to try this out, to figure out their creative rhythm. Where do they even start?
Well, Charbonneau is a simple suggestion. Track your energy and mood for a week. Just pay attention to when you feel most alert, when you get frustrated easily, when you're full of ideas.
So like making a map of your internal landscape where those creative peaks and valleys are?
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing is, these patterns, they're often connected to way more than just being able to write a song or paint.
Oh, I bet. They probably affect things like our confidence, how we communicate, even how we relate to people.
You got it.
Yeah, makes sense. Like some days I feel like I can take on anything, and then other days I just want to hide under a blanket. Definitely affects how I work and how I talk to people.
And Charbonneau talks about that openly too, you know? He says his own confidence goes up and down throughout the day, and he's even noticed how it affects the way he interacts with his team.
So he's not saying we all have to become robots who are like perfectly creative on a set schedule.
No, definitely no robots. It's more about recognizing those natural ebbs and flows and working with them.
Instead of fighting against them.
Right. Like if you know you tend to hit a slump in the afternoon, maybe that's not the best time to brainstorm or try to write something complex.
It's about being strategic, knowing when to push and when to let your energy kind of recharge.
Exactly. And if you know you're super energized first thing in the morning, maybe that's when you tackle your most creative tasks.
When your mind is fresh and you're feeling good.
Yep, that's the time to strike.
So even someone who feels like they have zero creativity can still benefit from this.
Absolutely. It's all about finding your own creative rhythm and learning to, dance to it.
Doesn't have to be the same rhythm as everyone else. It's your unique rhythm. And that's what makes it so cool.
Exactly. It takes the pressure off of having to fit into someone else's idea of what creativity should be.
Love that. So freeing.
Yeah, it's about embracing your own flow. And once you start to get a sense of your rhythm, then you can start to build habits and rituals that support it.
Oh, so it's not just about passively noticing when you feel creative, but actually doing something with that information.
Exactly. You can set yourself up for success.
By planning ahead.
Right. Schedule those demanding tasks for your peak creative times and give yourself permission to just chill when your energy dips.
I love it. This is starting to feel less like a creativity hack and more like a whole new way of living.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Like you're really tuning into your own energy and learning how to make it work for you.
Yeah, and use it to fuel your creative fire. It's really cool. Charbonneau says we can actually kind of train our creative flow.
Oh, really? Like build it up.
Yeah, like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Interesting. So you're not just stuck with whatever your natural rhythm is. You can actually work on it.
Exactly. Think about athletes training for a marathon. They don't just show up on race day and hope for the best.
Right. They have a whole training schedule, right?
Yeah.
Helps them build endurance and perform their best.
Exactly. So how do we apply that to, our creative lives?
Good question.
Charbonneau is a big believer in rituals and routines, having a set time for writing each morning, that kind of thing.
Oh, So like making those non-negotiable appointments with your creativity.
Yeah, exactly. And he actually has a specific day of the week when he records his videos, calls it Thursday Thunder.
Thursday Thunder, love it. So it's about removing the decision-making, right? You're not waiting for inspiration. You're just showing up ready to create.
Exactly. It takes the pressure off, you know. You don't have to wonder when you'll find the time. You've already made the time.
I like that. Less mental clutter.
And that consistency can really help you build momentum.
Makes it easier to overcome those moments of self-doubt or when you just don't feel like it.
Right. Because let's be honest, we all have those days.
Yeah, totally. But if you've already committed to showing up at a certain time, it's easier to push through and get to work.
Exactly. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Like those rituals become anchors, help you stay grounded.
Even when things get hectic.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about the people who feel totally lost when it comes to creativity? Like, where do they even begin to find their rhythm?
I think Charbonneau would say start small. Don't try to change everything overnight.
Yeah, baby steps.
Yeah, right. Just pick one small thing you enjoy doing. Could be journaling, drawing, whatever, and commit to doing it for just 15 minutes a day at a specific time.
Makes sense. You're building that creative muscle slowly, just like you wouldn't run a marathon on your first day of training.
Exactly. And be patient with yourself. It takes time to figure out your rhythm and build those habits. But it's worth it.
It's not about being some creative superhero, right?
No, definitely not.
It's about finding your own energy and using it to live a more fulfilling life. And those people who feel the most stuck creatively, maybe they actually have the most to gain from this.
You know, I think you're right. Because if you spent years thinking you're not creative, this can be like a huge shift.
Like you're suddenly allowed to explore this whole other side of yourself.
Exactly. And it can have a ripple effect on your whole life. You might find yourself feeling more energetic, more confident.
More engaged in everything you do.
Right. You're giving yourself permission to be who you really are. And that, I think, is what's so beautiful about understanding your creative energy. It's not just about writing a book or making art.
It's about becoming more fully you.
Exactly. And, you know, we were talking about how our energy changes throughout the day, but what about bigger cycles?
Oh, you mean like seasonal changes?
Yeah, like, are there certain times of year when we're just naturally more creative?
Fascinating question.
Charbonneau talks about that a bit. He says for him, spring and fall are times of high energy and creativity, while summer and winter he feels a bit more sluggish.
So he's like a creative bear, hibernating in the winter and then coming out with all these fresh ideas in the spring.
Yeah. But seriously, there is some research suggesting our bodies and minds do follow those seasonal cycles.
Like seasonal affective disorder, right?
Yeah.
Some people have way less energy and motivation in the winter when there's less sunlight.
Yeah, exactly. And even if we don't experience full-blown SAD, it's still good to pay attention to how we feel as the seasons change.
So if someone always hits a creative wall in January, maybe they should go easy on themselves.
Right. It might just be their natural rhythm. Instead of pushing to create, maybe that's a time for resting and recharging.
So it's all about working with your body's natural cycles. Interesting.
Makes those New Year's resolutions a little easier to swallow, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Instead of setting these rigid goals, maybe we should be more flexible and let ourselves ebb and flow.
And that goes for our creative lives, too. Maybe January isn't the time to start a huge new project. Maybe it's a time for reflection, for gathering ideas.
Letting those creative seeds kind of germinate underground until spring.
Yeah, exactly. Giving ourselves permission to honor our own internal seasons.
This is making me think about all those people who, like, always get down on themselves. Feeling negative, unproductive, that kind of thing. What if they're just trying to be all energetic and get stuff done at the wrong time of day?
Oh, that's such a good point. Instead of thinking, ugh, I'm so lazy, what if you ask yourself, is this just a bad time for this particular thing?
Right. Maybe those negative feelings are just a sign that your energy is naturally low right then.
Exactly. And remember how Charbonneau talked about those confidence swings? He's super open about how his confidence changes throughout the day, even affects how he talks to people.
Oh yeah, makes total sense. Some days I feel unstoppable, and other days it's like pulling teeth just to answer an email.
Totally. We all have those ups and downs. But what if, instead of beating ourselves up for those low confidence times, we just accepted them?
Like, okay, I'm feeling a bit blah right now. I'll tackle that big project later when I'm feeling more, on.
Exactly. You're giving yourself permission to just be where you are, not forcing it.
So much better than that constant pressure to be on all the time.
So much better.
Okay, so big picture. What does this all mean for our listeners? How do they actually start figuring out their own creative rhythms?
Well, like we talked about earlier, Charbonneau suggests tracking your energy and mood for a week.
Just noticing when you feel most alert, focused, all that.
Right. When are you most energized? When are you confident? And when are you drained or kind of negative?
It's like making a map of your energy, highlighting those creative hotspots.
Exactly. And you might be surprised what you learn about yourself. Maybe you're a morning person, or maybe you come alive late at night.
And once you have that awareness, you can build a life that actually supports those rhythms.
Right. That's the idea. Schedule your toughest tasks for when you're at your peak. Give yourself permission to rest when your energy dips.
And build in those rituals that help you connect with those high energy periods.
Exactly. And even learn to be kinder to yourself during those low confidence moments.
So it's not just about being super productive, it's about creating a life that actually feels good.
Absolutely. And this can be especially powerful for those folks who think they have no creative time.
Because it helps them see that maybe they have more potential than they thought.
Exactly. It's shifting that thinking from, I'm not creative, to, when am I most creative?
Love that shift. It reminds us that creativity isn't some special talent only some people have.
It's an energy that flows through all of us. We can all tap into it.
It's just about figuring out how. So instead of asking, why am I not more creative? We should be asking,
when am I most creative?
yeah,
And how can I make the most of those times?
exactly. Such a great way to look at it. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into creative energy. Huge thanks to Bradley Charbonneau for sharing his insights, and to all of you for listening.
Thanks for having me.
Remember, it's not about forcing creativity. It's about understanding and harnessing your own unique rhythms. Go out there and create something amazing.